Hey everybody! So in this video I'm going to go a little more in detail about what I'm talking about when I say that I breed for things other than visual appearance. This may be stress coping, behavior, personality, feeding reliability, breeding reliability, resilience, and maybe how one interacts with its enclosure. You might say, well, this is kind of pointless because, the value is really in the appearance, and many breeders make a really successful business out of just breeding for specific genetics and specific appearances and just marketing them the right way. Who would be dumb enough to waste their time and resources and money on doing something like this? So to illustrate, I'm going to give some visual examples of what it is that I'm looking for. I have 3 tiers as a way that I kind of describe a hatchling's baseline when it comes out of the egg. I would rather use how a hatchling comes out of the egg without very much influence from me or its environment to know sort of what it genetically does behavior-wise, how it's genetically influenced in its feeding, whether or not it hides, whether or not it's bold, whether or not it's fearful or defensive. Every clutch is kind of a mixed bag, and every baby kind of comes out with a different baseline. My mission is to find out if there is a genetic component to that, or if it truly is just random and it cannot be influenced. My hypothesis is that it can, in fact, just like any other species, be influenced by selective breeding. As far as I know, nobody else has really delved too deeply into the specific aspect of breeding because, like I said, the value is in the visual genetics. So we're going to find out. I have no idea, as a disclaimer, if anything that I am trying to do is even possible. I have no idea if it's going to be a giant waste of time, and I may do this for years and years and make no progress at all compared to where I'm at now. So here are the 3 baselines. I describe a red baseline as a baby who is either inherently defensive or fearful. This could result in a hatchling overreacting to stimuli. It might recoil and curl up into a ball or recede to its hide. It may spend all of its time in its hide, or it may strike out and try to defend itself whenever it perceives a threat or something that it's not familiar with. This is not a hatchling I would ever choose to breed. I will work with them and try to do my best to socialize them a little bit to make them more adoptable, but I will not breed these individuals myself. The next baseline, which is most common in the ball python species, is neutral. So neutral babies can go kind of one way or the other depending on the day. They vary a little bit, but usually they can manage well enough to drink their water, eat their food, move around their enclosure a little bit, hide a little bit. They do normal everyday ball python behaviors. Sometimes they may be in the mood to be interacted with, sometimes they just want to be left alone. They're usually a little unsure at first. So this is a perfectly normal snake. There's usually nothing wrong with this, and that baby could grow up to be perfectly healthy and normal, social, in terms of snakes. Or it could grow up to be a bit more, kind of fearful, defensive, reclusive, maybe prefer not to be touched. So a neutral baseline baby is really going to depend. For me, if it has other genetics that I'm, really trying to work with or seeking out, I may choose to use one of these babies so long as they cope with everything okay, that they're eating reliably, that they seem otherwise healthy, and that they respond well to any kind of socialization that I try to do. And the final baseline is green, which this is the best case scenario in the breeders that I'm going to select. These are babies that not only have no trouble at all with their normal everyday behaviors and feeding, but also they don't react hardly at all to my presence. They are more likely to be bold and forward with you rather than recede. So when you open the tub, they may crawl out on their own, they may crawl right onto your hand, they may do a whole lot of curious tongue flicking rather than retreating. I have 2 holdbacks that I'll be showing off in a moment that perfectly exemplify this green baseline that I'm talking about. So thus begins the test. I won't be able to breed these individuals obviously for a couple of years. They need to grow up first, but I will continue in the meantime to selectively breed for personality. Up until that point, obviously my holdbacks will give me much more data than the random snakes that I have selected from other breeders. But at least that I know that the ones that I am breeding will either be of a neutral or a green baseline. So I should get a decent proportion, if my theories are correct, of suitable holdbacks for this behavior project. Now, before anybody jumps down my throat, yes, I understand snakes do not have the same mental and emotional capacity as mammals do, as they don't need to. It's not necessary for their survival, their instincts, or anything like that. However, the reason that I'm trying to do this is because, if you've been in any ball python Facebook group, how often do you hear people complain that their snakes are not adapting well to the new enclosure they've put them in? They're not eating, they're not growing, they're not interacting, they might be striky and fearful. I am kind of trying to bridge that gap and sort of provide something a little bit different that may solve this problem. As well as if these snakes are truly genetically resilient and deal with stress a lot better and are less likely to overreact, maybe that'll be great for breeders too, because maybe they won't reabsorb their eggs when you go to move them to a new enclosure. Maybe they won't avoid breeding because they're a little uncomfortable with their environment. Maybe they will be more likely to eat consistently throughout the year and grow as you want them to. Or simply moving from a vivarium to a tub rack system, or moving from a tub rack system to a vivarium will not affect them in any significant way. I think that having mentally well-rounded snakes that deal with stress really well, that don't overreact, that eat reliably, that aren't assholes, are just beneficial to everyone, no matter what walk of life you come from, no matter what business you operate, or if you're a pet keeper or a breeder. Now let's let the experimentation begin. Alright, now I'm going to do my best to show visual examples of what we're talking about. So this is one example of what I call a red baseline. All this little baby does is hide, either inside or behind his little coconut. Unfortunately, this baby is so fearful that it has become severely dehydrated because it's too afraid to even leave its hiding place to go drink water. Thus far, she has not eaten on her own. She does have to be assist-fed for every meal, and anytime I try to make any progress with that, she doesn't seem to be interested. She barely even looks at the prey items. So this is red baseline fearful. This snake will not be bred. So this is an example of red baseline defensive. This is a little lemon pastel. She chooses to strike or get ready to strike rather than interact or tongue flick. This also is a problem you see when feeding. She will fight off her prey item, even though it's already dead, rather than actually trying to eat it. And sometimes even when she does manage to strike and wrap, she often drops it and gets back into defensive position. She stays very tense, sort of puffed up. Sometimes if I handle her for a few minutes, she'll kind of relax once she realizes that the touch is not dangerous and that I'm not going to eat her. But it takes her a while to get to that point. So baseline red will not be a breeder. Now here we have an example of baseline neutral. This is more typically what you'd expect from a baby ball python and their behavior. So at first, a little unsure, a little uncomfortable, examining the situation, but not particularly puffy, not huffy, not getting into defensive position, also not retreating, just kind of watching and waiting. I can go in and touch without a lot of reaction, maybe just a little bit of twitching. This baby does eat reliably. Wasn't the quickest to start eating, but it didn't take long. There's the tongue flicks. I can already feel her body relaxing. She's not tense, she's kind of dangling. This is baseline neutral. Not a perfect breeder, but not out of the question. And then these snakes are baseline green, docile, curious, bold, really good eaters. Not too afraid of anything, a little bit of caution, but their desire to be curious and adventurous kind of overrides that a lot. Snakes that behave this way are great for breeding. Hi, honeybee. This is my female holdback. I'm not feeding you again, honey. They're of course very used to the tub opening meeting feeding. He still seems to think he's being fed. Good sir. I don't have a mouse for you, I'm sorry. Where is it? I know it's coming. Snap out of it. Starting to switch out of instinct feeding mode, a little bit into thinking mode. Where that tongue goes. There he goes. Yeah, once they, realize what's actually happening, they immediately become interested in coming out and investigating. What's up, Jagger? So this little guy is the one that falls asleep on our feet and on our laps when we take him out. or tends to settle in close proximity to us. I'm not sure what to attribute that to yet, as he is very young and it could mean a lot of things. But he seems not to feel too insecure around people, which is great, because instinct would, indicate that we are likely large predators and potentially a danger. So seeing them at ease in our presence in any way is just always good. So these are just a few, basic behavioral examples that I'm looking at and that I'm working with. The real experimentation comes when I can breed my holdbacks, the ones that I've specifically selected for personality, to see if there is a higher ratio in their clutches of snakes that behave like this, that are relaxed, that do not show signs of distress, that eat reliably. Hopefully they will breed reliably. If they are less prone to stress, we'll have to see. Pretty much every other species where people have tried, we have been able to increase desirable personality traits through selective breeding. But it's not often tried with many snake species. I mean, especially not one that's so manageable like ball pythons. So it will be cool to see if it can be done. So if you are interested in that, keep up with my channel. There will occasionally be videos updating the progress of this experiment and any findings that I have, any data I collect. I believe that that is all for this one. Sorry if it's a little haphazard. This is the first informational video I'm really doing on this project specifically. Thank you for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next one. Say bye, honeybee!